nanyi. Nashukuru Mungu kwa mwaliko mchungaji wenu brother DK ambaye ni rafiki wangu wa miaka mingi, na katika miaka hiyo yote tukawa watumishi pamoja. I got to know him as my youth member when I was a minister in Tomotomo. So when I'm here, I'm in familiar grounds. Bwana asifiwe. I'm also in familiar grounds because of your session clerk, the Salome. Come on here. Okay. The Salome, we have a history together. Damu ikinamilia, ni damu amulile mudhuri. Mbona unafanya hivi, umeshangaa? And she and her husband are good friends for many years. We have walked a journey together. At some point she was my session clerk. So we thank God for this moment. I'm also in familiar grounds because of your student minister, Anne Wahome. The dad was my Presbyterian youth chairman when I was secretary. We served with her dad for many years in the Nyeri Hill Presbytery. So when I am here, I'm in familiar grounds. Mekubali sasa. So what do you want to hear from me? Maybe we start there. Okay, we start. Wacha. Mimi nasema walking together. Me, I don't think I have that. To start with, how much time do I have? You give me 3 hours, I'll go for 3 hours. You give me 20 minutes, I'll go for 20 minutes. 1 hour only. Sawa sawa. So, are you in agreement that you're giving me 1 hour? So, what else do you want to hear from me? What time is it? It's 20 past 6. Okay. We are dealing with covenant renewal. Covenant renewal. And what is covenant renewal? Why do we do covenant renewal? Where did the covenant renewal come from? And who is supposed to do covenant renewal? Those are questions that may be answered along the way. And I want to, I love the when it comes to covenant renewal, I love the Kikuyu song that says, Igatweka jero korerioa andone kerema kanaduma shakomogiriageo takoingia todugaya tagwomotoria. So I love that message. Gainero hageire kanero. So why should it be God renewing covenant and not us? Before we go there, because I'm looking at you guys, looking at me. You don't have pen, you don't have notebooks, you probably don't even have your Bibles. Everything is here. Okay, and your Bible is there. And so when a text message comes, you still have a Bible. No. Okay. So there is a guy by name John Wesley. John Wesley and his brother Charles Wesley. I want to start there. John Wesley was an Anglican minister. Na kama mchungaji wa kanisa la Kianglikana kule Europa, ikawa he left Europe and moved to the US, where he started mission work. When John Wesley was told by the Anglican Church that he has neglected his parish and he should go back, he said these words, "The world is my parish," and he never went back. Akiwa kule Marekani, his of groups of worshippers together. And he structured the way of worship and fellowship. And in so doing, they became groups of people who worship and fellowship and praise in a certain method. And when he refused to go back, he brought these groups together and became the founder of what is called the Methodist Church. So his brother, Charles Wesley, was very instrumental in composing most of the hymns that we sing. John Wesley at some point analyzed the people, Christians, and he realized that what we do is that we tend to forget. We tend to forget as human beings. And in forgetting, what we do is that we fail to understand that God never forgets. And God is so faithful in keeping his part of the covenant. Why? Because covenant literally means, and the word comes from Latin, which literally means coming together. Coming together. And so when we talk about covenant as the coming together of two parties, it is an agreement. And as an agreement, you know very well, every party must keep their part of the bargain. Amasivio. So John Wesley came to the realization that God has been faithful to keep his part of the covenant. But human beings tend either to forget, to neglect, or misbehave, and do not keep their covenant. So, in the world today, in your life today, the question that maybe we want to ask ourselves, ask yourself, has God kept his part of the covenant with me or about me? Mungu ametimiza sehemu ya agano lake nawe. Let's go back to 2025, the year that has gone. What did we do at the beginning of the year? We prayed for God to watch over us and to keep us and to bring us to the end of the year 2025. Has he done that? Has he done that? Take your mind back and think about the number of times in that 1 year that you attended funeral services. Think about the number of times you either visited a person in hospital or you were told in church to pray for so-and-so who is in hospital, and it is not you who was being prayed for. God kept you healthy. God kept you alive. God kept you healthy. And you have been here in this world when we know very well, and COVID came to teach us that it is not automatic without aid. So you see and you hear people who have to be aided to breathe the same oxygen that you are breathing freely. Has God kept his part of the bargain? So have you? If God has kept his part of the bargain to keep you through the year, because according to the covenant renewal service, it's supposed to be done at the beginning of the year so that we can be reminded. We can recommit ourselves to the same God who has walked with us through the past 1 year. So when we talk about the covenant, we need to understand that this is about God. The idea or the idea of the covenant presupposes that there are two or more parties. So if you are a Christian, there is a covenant between you and God. God on one side and you on the other side. What is the purpose of a covenant? The purpose of a covenant, and it is one of the most repeated themes in the Bible. You read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. It's about conditions that God has put to his beings. Mungu anatuambia kila mmoja wetu, ukifanya hivi nitafanya hivi. You read Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 19. God says, Mogeji guona mojathe kagire ne munereaga indo ciothe ke jaga ciathe. If you listen to me and obey me, you will eat of the fruit of the land. So for God to fulfill his part of the promise, we have a part to promise. Listening and obeying. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, Have we been in the business of listening and obeying God? You know, when we think about Christians today, we have literally diluted the concept of our faith, the concept of our relationship with God. We have diluted it. That there was a time that being saved was very serious. You know that. There was a time that maybe those of you who have interacted with the people of the Quatanero, the African Revival Fellowship, there was a time they would come and tell you, "What are you told you not more than?" Today, go tell her. She can tell you anything, right? I was even told one time that she didn't more than me, but what could I do? So, well, that is not the story. But covenants are the backbone of the Bible. Covenants are the backbone of the Bible because it is what God expects of you, even as you expect God to fulfill his part of the covenant. So you read from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and you get to understand that God enters into sometimes formal, other times informal relationships with his created order. These become agreements between God and his people, and they are very central to the Bible. Why are covenants important? One, covenants, they remind us of God's deeds in history. So when we come together as a people of God, when we come for a covenant renewal service, it's a moment of reflection. It's a moment of analyzing and looking back as to at what God has done. And usually in a covenant renewal service, you are supposed to look and analyze and do a self-critique of what God has done and what you have done. And God in a covenant renewal service is literally asking you, I have done this for you. Have you done what you say for me? Now, you know, every beginning of the year, many of us Christians have a lot of resolutions. I have heard even people saying, "Hey, the mwaka will never join the choir. I will join the worship team. I will start tithing. I will. And you tell it to the people, don't you think that God is listening? Don't you think that God is listening? So when you don't fulfill, who has failed? Is it God or you? So sometimes we waste a lot of time for God telling, "Guide the idea hiki already. What are you?" And you know, even sometimes you call prayer partners. You entered into a covenant with God yourself. So there is no two way about it. There is no option. You are asked to fulfill. Hello? You are asked to fulfill. So the covenant renewal service reflect on what God has done. And when you reflect on what God has done, oh my goodness, you remember you are alive because of God. You remember you did not become admitted in hospital because of God. You remember you are a wife, you are a mother, you are a husband, you are a child, you have parents because of God. You remember you are breathing because of God. You remember you have a job because of God. You remember you are walking on your 2 feet because of God. You actually remember on a weekend no more than. There are some that are being turned, right, left. Sidio. For you to be sitting here and listening to me, the more than it. Okay. No more than what God has done for you is just too much. Tell your neighbor, he has done a lot for me. Remember God's deeds. Remember what God has done in history. And then the next thing that we have to do, point number 2, is we do a covenant renewal service to reestablish relationships with God. To reestablish our relationship with God. In some instances, we have fallen short of His glory. We have left the right paths. We have not fulfilled our promises. We are given another opportunity at the beginning of the year to reestablish our foreign relationships with God. It is a time to tell God, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be called your child. And you said in your theme, can two walk together without an agreement? You talked about somebody speaking here about God is waiting for you to come back to Him. God is waiting. So reestablish a relationship with God. It is an opportunity to tell God, I have not been right with you. We may not know where you went in the course of the year and the things that you did. We may not know, but God knows. So it's a time to tell God, I have not done according to your will. I have not done what we agreed with you. I am here, God, to reestablish a relationship with you. And that is very important because covenants are a way for God to establish relationships with His people. Number 3, it is also an opportunity to establish a confessional relationship. Confessional relationship. Confessional in the sense that, and especially us who are not from the Roman Catholic faith. The Roman Catholic faith, people go on Saturday and confess to their priests, right? It's not the Aubori. A covenant renewal service is an opportunity for you to confess before God. Before you reestablish that relationship, you also confess before God and tell God, yes, I am a sinner. I am not worthy to be called your child. I am not worthy to be called your child. So it's a moment of confession. We come to a covenant renewal service and kneel before God. And tell God, we have seen your faithfulness. We have witnessed your goodness. We have drunk from your mercies. But we have not been as faithful as you are. So we come and confess before God, both publicly, privately, silently, loudly, but confess before God. Then, covenant renewal service. A covenant renewal service brings about reconciliations. When I talk about reconciliation, it's not just reconciliation with God. It should be a moment even for you to be reconciled with other children of God or God's created beings. So you cannot come to a covenant renewal service, restore a relationship and have a confessional moment before God, and then you walk out of that door after that kind of a service. Is it happening in the house of God? Is it happening? We usually talk our story. A lady who used to be very active in the church, and then some few Sundays she started coming to church late. She starts there, checks this side, and then sits on the other side. And when I came to ask what was happening, I came to realize, oh, please listen to me. You're not listening to me. And I have only 1 hour. Come on. I have only 1 hour. Eh? The problem with me is that when your mind goes away, I will not continue until you listen. So, na mutikoro ni mahida maige kana tiguo. Oyo ona arugamite no mumo nake. Ona rira rainuka muno nake. Sa debo akorona. Please, ndira dakika nini muno. So this lady, when I inquired, I came to learn one thing. She was coming late when we were singing the first song, because there is another lady in the same church, marahĩtanirie maretana mĩrura coka akarũgama arora mwana ithe itwe mwena ũyũ agathiĩ gaikara mwena ũrĩa gũtikahĩtĩrio nĩ andũ aya worship moka gĩthia mũndũ mwĩre nĩ ũmwendete kana ndangĩenda gũkorwo hakuhĩ hau ũguo. Is it happening in the church? Na nĩ inyuĩ people who are quite unforgiving, people who cannot restore relationships with one another. A covenant renewal service is a movement that should bring about reconciliation for all people of God. It's a movement that you need to forgive the other person. And so we need to be very careful. We are coming to a covenant renewal service. The other thing about a covenant renewal service, it is a time that provides us worshippers with a sense of belonging. It provides for us a sense of belonging. We start realizing we do not just live. We do not just exist. We do not just worship. We do not just sit here. It's an opportunity to remember and to have a sense of ownership by God, a sense of belonging. In life and in death, we belong to God. And when you know that you belong to God, it does not matter what people have done to you. It does not matter what you did not see in church, but you have come to church because of God and for God. From the beginning to the end of the service, a person who has a sense of belonging would come to church because I belong to God and I want to hear what my God is saying, not how people are dressed. No, because you have a sense of belonging. You belong to a God who cares more about you, forget about others. But at the same time, we also need to remember that even as we have a sense of belonging, this sense of belonging is both individual and corporate. So that does not excuse you who regards others to continue doing it. Are we together? Because this sense of belonging is both individual and corporate. For others, Paul comes in and says, so the fact that I have said that does not mean that you are excused from misbehaving or doing whatever you do or not doing things that are going to be an obstacle to others. However, we have a moral responsibility before God to cultivate our sense of belonging and our identity as children of God. One as if you. Then the other thing is that when we come to a covenant renewal service, it's an opportunity to seek God to offer to us His protection going forward. So we come to seek the protection of God going forward. Those things are very important. It is not that God cannot protect you and I, but God wants us to verbalize, to practice, to identify the need for God's protection for each one of us. So we come as a corporate body to confess both corporately and individually before God so that we can walk together as a people with agreement with our God and agreement with one another. One as if you. That's the purpose of renewing a covenant. The Bible has several and so many covenant references, but I want to mention 5 that are very important. The first covenant between God and human beings is in Genesis chapter 6 to chapter 9, what we call the Noahic covenant, or the covenant between God and Noah. If you read Genesis chapter 9, this is a covenant that God established with Noah after the flood. What was it about? God reset the button. He reset the button and renews his blessings upon his created order. What does God do in this covenant? God reaffirms God's image in the eyes of those that he has created. God reaffirms his dominion over the world. I am the God who holds you. I can finish the entire world. And I can save he who I want to save, he or she that I want to save. So God, in the covenant between God and Noah, God reaffirms his dominion, his authority, his creative power. I created you. I hold your life. I can do what I want with your life. The other thing about Noah's covenant with God, God promises Noah the preservation of humanity. And he says, after this, he established the rainbow as a reminder that God has relented. So it is a new covenant. I will not finish the humanity. And then the other thing about the covenant between God and Noah is that it provides for the restraint of human evil. You cannot go back to where Sodom and Gomorrah was. You cannot go back to where the people were when God determined, I am going to finish them. So, that covenant between God and Noah provides for a restraint in terms of our character, in terms of our behavior, in terms of our morality, in terms of our relationship with one another. The second covenant that we have is the covenant between God and Abraham. It's in Genesis 12 to 15. And this is the most central to the biblical story. In it, God promises Abraham a lad, God promises Abraham descendants, and God promises Abraham blessings. Lad, descendants, and blessings. This covenant between God and Abraham means, and it has several elements. Element number one, if you read chapter 15, verse 1, it has Yahweh's sovereign presence. Yahweh's sovereign presence. I am your God. It's the sovereignty of God. The second element is that it assures Abraham of a rich future, very rich future. I will make you a nation. I will make you a great man. So the second element about this covenant between God and Abraham is that it assures Abraham of a rich future. It also has the element of the continuity through many descendants, a large seed. So God promises Abraham, I will make you a great nation with so many descendants. Continuity through procreation. Then the other element about God's covenant with Abraham is God promises a place to live and a place where they will serve in the midst of other nations. A place to live and a place to dwell in the midst of other nations, so that the nations can know that your generation is different from them. You will have descendants who are protected, guided, led by God, and they will be unique. A loyal priesthood, a people that other nations will look at and know that there is a God who walks with them. The other element is that this covenant between God and Abraham, it had a curse on opponents. A curse on opponents of the blessed children of Israel, or the blessed descendants of Abraham. If they oppose you, I will oppose them. You fight you, I will fight them. So he pronounced a curse on the enemies of the children of God. And then the last element of this covenant is that it has a response of faith. It has a response of faith and the blessing of justification. And that's why Abraham becomes the father of faith, because it is out of faith that Abraham obeyed God. I want you to imagine a situation whereby God comes to you and tells you, I want you to arise, you and your wife or your husband, and walk from this place to a place that I will show you. I want you to note that it is not a very easy thing to obey. Ngai arakwĩra uma na mũndũ waku mumagare, no nĩ ngũkuonia kũrĩa mũrathiĩ. Ũrathiĩ kwĩra andũ anyu atĩa? Mwathiĩ kũ? Mũgacoka rĩ? Tũngĩũka kũmũcaria tũngĩmũcaria kũ? No koima mũndũ ũcio ena mũtwe mwega, mũthuri ũcio ũgwĩtwo Abraham augakwĩra mũtumia, na mũtumia nake nĩ mwega, korwo nĩ ũmũthĩ ndangĩtĩkĩra ũthiĩ ũkere mũtumia waku ũguo mũndũ. Tũrathama Thĩka, nĩtũgũthiĩ taũni ĩngĩ, ndiũĩ nĩ kũ, no nĩ ngũthiĩ gũkua. Ni wewe. But Sarah obeyed and followed. Abraham obeyed God and went without knowing where, what, how, and who is going to live with him. Kugimadu mahana agwathikira Ngai uguo oria Ngai aroiga geka. Abraham was credited to become the father of faith. There is another covenant, the Mosaic covenant, or the covenant between God and Moses, recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 19 and 24. This is the covenant that God established with the people of Israel at Mount Sinai. God, after leading them out of Egyptian slavery, he established a covenant with them through what is seen as the 10 Commandments. This was about the law. God surprised the law that is meant to govern and shape the people of Israel into the promised land. This was about the law, and understanding Mosaic covenant is also foundational to our faith today, because it has cycles of blessings and curses depending on our obedience or disobedience. The other thing I'm going to mention about this covenant is that God in the covenant with Moses identifies himself to Moses and to the people as the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm the God of your fathers. I'm the God of your fathers. And then God identifies himself as the ever faithful one. As I was with your fathers, so shall I be with you. So God establishes his position as the faithful one over Israel. And he also comes and tells Moses, I will be with you. I will lead you to the promised land. And then in this very covenant, God also served in fulfilling the promise that he made to Abraham, that he will bring his descendants from a strange land. He is the one who told Abraham, a time will come that I'll bring your people back to your own land. Many years after that. And this is fulfilled during the reign of Moses. So Moses was commanded to perform wonders before the doubting people of Israel, so that they would believe that the Lord is fulfilling his covenant with their forefathers. I'll move on to the Davidic covenant, or the covenant between God and King David. I'm rushing because you gave me a very short time. You read 2 Samuel chapter 17. This is the covenant where God promises a descendant to David who is going to reign on the throne over the people of God and becomes a continuation of the earlier covenants that God had promised to David. And so this covenant that God had with David becomes the basis for the hope of a Messiah. It is from your lineage that we will get the Messiah, the one who will deliver Israel. So God speaks to David, and though David may have fallen short of the glory of God, God still fulfills that promise because he had made it with David. And eventually, when Jesus comes into this world, he comes from the lineage of King David. So in fulfilling the covenant, God chooses David as a small boy to be the future king. And in this, God repeats the formula. I have been with your forefathers, I will be with you. In the same, he promises David that his name was to be great among the nations, and he would become a great king. He also promises David that the throne of the kingdom of the Son was to be established forever. So Davidic kingdom was to remain forever. Then David's son Solomon also came and took over from him. Let's move on to the last covenant I want to talk about. I am trying to move a little bit fast. If you read Luke chapter 22, verse 14 to 23, this is the new covenant. The new covenant that came with the coming of Christ into this world. If you read Luke chapter 22, the same reflects back to the Old Testament covenants and promises, and especially Jeremiah that one, as God in Jeremiah promises a rescue of the people from exile back into their own land. So the new covenant is the promise that God will forgive sins. It is not just about God making Abraham a great nation. It's not just about God telling Noah, I will not finish my creations thereafter. This new covenant is the promise that God will forgive sin and God will restore our fellowship and our relationship with him. The difference between the other covenants in the Old Testament and this new covenant is that Jesus becomes the mediator of the new covenant. So Jesus is the mediator. Unlike in the past where the mediator was the law. You do this, I will do this. You stop doing this, I will stop punishing you. The law took preeminence in the Old Testament. But in the New Testament, God brings in the concept of grace. The gracious God brings his Son to die for our sins so that the law becomes weakened. The law becomes weakened and our relationship with God is out of God's grace and God's mercies, because Jesus is the mediator of the new covenant. And in this new covenant, we get to learn several things. The benefits of walking in covenant with God. The benefits of walking in the new covenant with God. And this becomes a rewarding experience. One, the new covenant gives guidance and direction to a people who may not know where they will go or what will happen tomorrow or what they are supposed to do. The new covenant gives us guidance and direction. Two, the new covenant gives us protection and provision. The protection of God. God promising to be with you and to take care of you. And it also gives us provision. Protection and provision. Whatever you desire, ask from me, and it shall be given to you. And God comes in. God comes in and uses Jesus to teach us the things that we need to know, to understand in terms of provision. By the way, let me ask you, when you come here in the church and we tell us to say the Lord's Prayer, and we come to the point whereby we say, give us today our daily bread, does that prayer make sense to you? Does it? Are you sure you don't have today's food? I'm willing to bet that you even have more than enough for tomorrow, right? So why should you say, give us today our daily bread? Don't you have enough? You do? Why did you say that prayer? It's not about the food. No, it's about the food. Bread is food. It's about the food. And you say it loudly with the mic here. Give us today our daily bread. Why did you say it yourself? You need that. You already have. Don't you have food in your fridge right now for tomorrow? What I'm trying to say is, I want you to understand this. The whole idea of the Lord's Prayer, give us today our daily bread, is not individual. Is this all of us? So there should be no one person who has food rotting in the fridge when the neighbor doesn't have food. It is us. We have become social beings. In God's created order, we are supposed to be neighbors, and neighbors support and supply to others' needs. And that's why we are called a fellowship. That's why we are called a fellowship, where you cannot just sit here as a church when one of you is sick and cannot afford to pay the hospital bill. We come and raise money together and assist the people, right? So the daily bread is supposed to be corporate. You cannot have food in your refrigerator and your neighbor has no food. That is not Christian. Hello? So the prayer is corporate. It is about bread. But it is bread for us, not just you. Are we together? So God has supplied to your needs, not just for you, but for you and those neighboring you that do not have. Do we act like that, really? Do we act like that? The new covenant is about provision and protection. So the God who has provided, so that you can provide to the other person, also ensures that you are protected from lack. You are protected from lack. The other thing about the new covenant is about peace and joy. It's about peace and joy. The new covenant is about peace and joy. The Bible says that murangiri wa Israeli ndahetagwo ni toro. Riu uraga toro na murangiri wa Israeli arari atari toro no kurangira thi. Ukara rogi tara mitri no nyumba ni ciekirwo ceiling. Is it really right? You go to bed and become like a child. I don't care. Kai. Ni ndauka gukoma. Kou konge toro urangiri nake no akirwa murangiri wa Israeli. So why do we spend sleepless nights? The new covenant is about peace and joy. So if you come across a Christian who is not happy, there's something wrong with your Christianity, my dear. Ngai waku nduratokaja tondu ndungithia utukitie thithi na wina uira. Wow. Uratukie githithi tondu wa marakara mundu urekirwo ni mundu agwika, then ting'anie na rajinurire araririe ciakwa ni ekunyona uwe arikia gukuona no ukuongererwo matuku. Muthamaki umwe wa bururi uyu watucinurire a whole country. We were fighting to have a vice president. We didn't have a vice president. We stayed for 14 months without a vice president. And a whole president of a nation ararugama akauga ni ndamuhe tuone kana ngima ni kuongerereka kwa nyunyungu. Seriously? A leader. So na ithuĩ tũkiuga ta mũthamaki ũcio, okay. Nĩ andũ amwe mareka ũguo mũndũ akauga nĩ araririe ciakwa nĩ ekũnyona, arĩkia gũkuona. Amwe marathiĩ ũkona thoko matarwanĩire nginya nguo. You embarrass yourself. So if the new covenant promises peace and joy, igũtiramakania ũrĩa maranjĩtire kana ũrĩa maranumire. Mũtumia ũmwe nderaga Salome hĩndĩ ĩmwe kanitha twarĩ nake. Mũtumia ũmwe okire wabici yakwa. Ndarĩ wa kanitha itu. She comes in. Tungatĩri. Ndoka tondũngania no wa kanitha yaku na nĩ my roommate. Na niĩ ndĩmwareka maũndũ ũguo aigua ũrĩa nguga, ngĩmwĩra ũngĩaga kuga. Arĩ mũndũ no akwĩre no amwĩke maũndũ mamwe ũcio wage kuga. Ũngĩaga kuga. Nĩ mũthenya ũngĩ aranjĩtire ng'ombe. Ngĩmwĩra tarũgama. Wabici yakwa nĩ yarĩ gĩcicio ngĩra tarũgama yarĩ gĩcicio-inĩ. Nĩ ũrona ng'ombe? Kiuga gĩtige gwĩtua ng'ombe. So the question is, mũndũ angĩgwĩta ng'ombe rĩ, nawe nĩwe wĩna thĩna kana nĩwe? Aiko maitho make marona mũirĩtu ũthondekete njuĩrĩ makaga kuona njuĩrĩ ĩyo na ũthaka ũcio makona ng'ombe rĩ. Mũndũ ũcio wĩtua kuona ndagĩtarĩ. Ona gatongoria gake tikĩ. So we ũrathĩnio nĩ mũgũrũki na ũgenda kũgũrũka take. Nĩ ũkũnyona nĩ ũgwĩta ng'ombe. Rĩu ũragũrũka nĩki? Na ũrandiru na mũgũrũki. Rĩu arigirwo nĩ ũrĩa kũnjĩra kiuma karagĩka atĩa. Sometimes we worry so much. The new covenant is about peace and joy. And peace is not given by others. It's given by God. Joy is not given by others. It is given by God. Paul is writing to the Philippian church while he is in prison, telling them, "Inyuĩ mũtarĩ njera, rejoice in the Lord always." And I say again, imagine mũndũ wĩ njera kũrĩa angĩaga gĩkeno nĩ ũrera andũ mũikarage mũkenete. So who are you? Have you been taken to prison? The new covenant is about peace and joy. It's also about purpose and fulfillment. Purpose and fulfillment. Yes, we live a life of purpose and we lead fulfilled lives. We enjoy life because there is fulfillment. This purpose and this fulfillment does not come from material things. It does not come from people. It comes from the knowledge that God is spending sleepless nights so that I can spend a better life. I can be fulfilled. Ugakenaga. Uyo ndo marathi ni ukaigua nginya mundu araigua uiru atengania na agurire nguo njeru kana ngari njeru. That is them. I will remain fulfilled because I know kiria ndiaga kwa Ngai wao. Wakwa. Na andu amwe marathimwo irathimo igatuika thina harĩo. Do you know why David was saying, God, do not make me a beggar lest I embarrass your name. However, don't give me too much lest I forget you. So David was saying, let me just be fulfilled and contented with what you give me. I wish we can have that kind of a spirit where you are contented in that position. In the covenant renewal, toka kuwa Ngai wenda dathima, wenda nyihia, wenda reke njĩke maũndũ manene, ũngĩenda njikare ngomete gũtarĩ ũndũ ingĩhota, ona rĩo reke njigane. Fulfillment and purpose in life. Then the other thing is about the new covenant. It is about community and fellowship. Community and fellowship. Every Christian worth their salt who comes into a covenant renewal service, into a covenant with God, must be able to live like a community and in fellowship with one another. There is an African theologian who died some times back by the name Professor John Beatty. In his book, African Religions and Philosophies, he says, according to about African religion, he says, African religion is about this. I am because we are. And because we are, then I am. In other words, I am only who I am because of others. I owe my identity to you. And when you think about it, you understand one thing. Maureen. Do you know you don't need the name Pauline if you live in this world alone? Your name is not for you, it is for us. Right? In the same manner, and if you want to understand that you don't need it, okay, let me use this analogy. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you're alone in the house and you're sure you are alone, you know you can spend the whole day naked. What if you hear a knock on the door? In a gown, you know, because now your hair is not about you. Ono keme hogu kuhete no do ito. Ona gwe ore wathita duka komegura do amegura ka ni tondu waku agura ka ni tondu wi. So we become part of one another. It is out of these people that I have a name, and I dress the way I dress. I will speak. We are, no, I am, because we outside and absent these people, then I am a nobody. I like your clapping. So, Ani, Saruni, it is not for you. It is for me and others. Others, so we will tell others, hello? Katero sio gini todo akwa nikiwa ikirete gue yo. Todo korono wiki manao tida na gekofia motwe ti huo. So the new covenant is about community and fellowship. Community and fellowship. So we have to learn to walk as covenant people. How do we walk as covenant people? How do we become covenant people? Covenant people are a Sunday school kids. Let me ask you, what is that one verse you were taught in Sunday school and forced to memorize that you remember up to this day? Jeremiah 29:11. But that is not a Sunday school verse. You rant it when you are not. I need a Sunday school verse. John 3:16, Luke 2:52. I'm interested in Luke 2:52. What does it say? And Jesus grew. Let's go together. And Jesus grew. Okay, Dagikoyo. Nake Jesu agikura. Akenenehaga. Akiohegaga. Akiendagwo ni Ngai. Onado. There is a reason why we were taught to memorize that verse in Sunday school. And that is what I want you to know, to understand tonight if you want to be covenant people. One, and Jesus grew in stature, physical development. Two, and Jesus grew in wisdom, psychological development. Three, and Jesus grew in favor with God, spiritual development. And four, and Jesus grew in favor with men, social development. Every Christian worth their salt. Everyone who wants to be a good covenant person with God must grow holistically, physically, psychologically, spiritually, and socially. Physically. How do you grow physically? Mutije, how do you grow physically? Korea? Na gwika mazoezi na ati okay, na kumenyerera health yaku tiguo. So Christians, as you eat for physical development, you also need to be cautious what you eat. We are supposed to be role models as people that are physically developing in the right manner. We exercise. You know, the other day I was talking to a group of men, and I told them, you know, if you are sorry, wewe muthuri tondu no ahikanirie waumira wira remote irio ici ni iheire ikarehwo meko mai ma moko makarehwo nuroya thani ino ikagirwo urimu waku ndurakwira mutumia ni exercise areka nawe ni gukua rakua. And so now we have women outliving men by over 20 years. Haven't you seen that? Because hindi mutumia ra commercial maundu macio mothe ni exercise areka nawe ni gukua reka atia. We need to be very careful about our physical selves. Exercise. Be concerned about your health. The other day we planned with the Kikuyu Hospital to have a medical camp, free medical camp in my parish for 2 days. And in the morning as I was going to the parish, I met with one of the ladies, around the opposite direction. Duradi kore medical check. Acha ni dikwenda kwero de murwaru. Sometimes we have the fear of the unknown. So, my friend, even medical checkup is very important. Exercise is important. Physical development. And Jesus developed physically. Are we together? So take care of your physical self. Second thing, psychological self. Psychological development. Make sure you exercise your mind. Doma. Just read something. Read something. And even if you don't read, that time you are forcing your mind to exercise. The moment you make our minds idle, dementia is coming at a very early age. Because our mind is idle. Force yourself to think. Go back to school. Not what we are, but you can go back to school so that you can exercise your brains. Are we together? Psychological development, the pursuit of wisdom and the exercise of our mental selves. Take care of your mental self, even in terms of what you think. But if you can meditate upon forgiveness, you are putting into your life joy. I will forgive her. Niere todo dinage kwa ajnumari. Na gomureke na mutorere othie nake. Na ndekuongererwo matuko. Na rikia konduma inuka gwake no arikama. Na no arirugera ciana. Are we together? So just make sure that you are thinking, don't poison your mind with evil things. Don't poison your brains with things that are not beneficial to you. Paul comes and tells the Philippians, finally, brethren, maundu maria mothe mari mega, maundu maria mangiendeka, maundu maria mangiteka, maundu maria think about. Umo Christian oreciria uhoro wa maundu ma mundu eagoyo ehumbaga ekagira thiaga maranagiria bura. There's something wrong with you. If you are a covenant person, think about those things. Number 3, spiritual development. Spiritual development. I am concerned and really concerned about the drifting of our spiritual formation. Why is it coming? Why? Because this has become more important than the Bible. The phone. No ne mundu ma oimite gwake agakinya haha karika ndai na thimu agacoka mucii githomo gikiambiririe ni undu wa thimu. No na ngirikanira haha kenja ndai na Bible ndangicokera Bible. When we were getting saved, we were walking with the Bible. Hindi ona tutiari ngari cia gukua Bible. No tutiatigaga ki. We tell the people, when you're walking into the church, wakora Bible githomo karugamo haria ki. Does it make sense? Kurugama ja Bible thomo. Aria marathoma thimu-ini text message no iraingira. Disruption ni no ria wenja kana nawe muhuko. think about it. It is so disruptive na tofisha toka how Bible ine. We are gradually drifting our spiritual formation. Then, as I said about physical development, Christians who want to call themselves covenant people, but they don't read the Bible. How many here read a verse in the Bible before you left your house? Christians have literally neglected reading the Bible. And a Christian worthy their salt, a covenant Christian, must read a verse of the Bible every day. When I got born again, the one thing I realized is that I have to do my devotion every morning. And I was reading my daily bread every morning. And then I realized sometimes I'm reading, but I can't remember what I read. Because you are reading because it is kind of a novel, right? So I entered into a discipline. You are not only reading the daily bread on daily basis, but also reading another verse in the Bible and writing a devotional message so that I can exercise my mind and I can feed myself spiritually. It became a discipline I've had for over 15 years. I want those people that are my friends on Facebook, Sarome, to attest to that. Every morning, I have to write a devotional message on Facebook and to my session wall. Every day for over 10 years. Kumare to the US. To date, yesterday, I left my home at around 6 a.m. 6 a.m. in the morning. I was going for a funeral in Yen. I did my devotion. I wrote my devotion. I sent it to the session wall. And on Facebook, I forgot to post, to said post. And I left. And I got to Nyeri. And as the funeral service was going on, I got a text message from somebody from Seattle. If you want, because I want to be very serious about it, I want you to read this message. Somebody from Seattle sent me a message in the morning. Today, umeamua no devotion. Today, umeamua no devotion. Somebody in Seattle. And then I realized it is still there as a draft. I never posted it. Why did she do that? It's a spouse of one of our ministers. Why did she do that? Because she knows I never fail. Why are Christians becoming malnourished? We have neglected the Bible. And we want to be called covenant people? Give me a break. When is the last time you opened the Bible purposely for devotional purposes? So when I see people coming with their hearts in their pockets in church on Sunday, I'm worried. When I see people who have cars but their Bibles cannot fit in their cars, they will come with their phones. I'm worried. Covenant people. Nake Jesu agekora akenenehaga akiohegaga akiendagwo no. Cultivate God's love for yourself by creating time to be with God. And then number 4, social development. Akiendagwo Ngai ona ki ona andu. What to you if you are a Christian who goes to a place? Waigira ogu andu makauga Ngai ona uyu ari guku. Ni kuri andu moka mucemanio handu makamenya guku ni kwa hita. Christians should never be like that. Covenant people should be a people who get in and they add value, and everybody in that group knows no Karimi. Right? So you should never destroy people's connectivity. You should never be a person who destroys the social networks of people. Never. Never. The minister was preaching somewhere, and he said, every person who comes into your life is either a construction site or a destruction opportunity. Because every person you meet in life either is involved in your construction or in your destruction. There is no two way about it. Any person who moves in your life either is for your construction or your destruction. God forbid that from amongst you covenant people that you can be a destruction opportunity of any human being. Social development. Do you know Jesus himself, because of creating social networks and development, on the day that he was on the night that he was arrested and crucified, Jesus, knowing that Judas has pocketed the 30 pieces of silver, why didn't he tell him to go out? And when Judas comes with his soldiers late at night, when they left the Lord's table that evening, and Judas comes with the soldiers, Jesus tells me, Tiga go kako mumunya. Uri orenda gwikarikia nake. Didn't he ever write kumura mugorokio no ni okakunyitirio yoyo? But he never did that. Judas destroyed himself. Jesus never destroyed him. It is not your business to destroy your enemy. The Bible is very clear. Feed your enemy. Do them good. That is the Christian thing to do. That is the business that covenant people pursue. So if you want to be a covenant person, go back to Sunday school. Luke at 2:52. And because of growing holistically, physically, spiritually, psychologically, and socially, that made Jesus overcome even death on the cross. Rather than condemning them, can you tell God your enemy doesn't know what they are doing? It's not your business to condemn your enemies. It is not your business to deal with them. Your business as a covenant person is just to love your enemies. It is not a request. It is a biblical command for covenant people. My time